Canada Remembers and Honors. And we're working with Mad Canada. We have ethics approval from York University, lots of stringent guidelines. That's what one of the documents is about. And we will be producing, we've given a $200 donation to Mad Canada for allowing us to do this. But Steve and Jamie Lynn were very, they keep inviting us back, so they were very eager. And what we would like to produce from this project for Mad Canada, you know those big posters you see out there with people's stories? We'd like to be able to produce one of those, plus sort of information about, in paper format, which can also go on Mad Canada's online space, about the project and your experiences. So I'm Deborah Davidson, and this is our wonderful research assistant, Amber Lee Bart. And I left an A out of her last name. I'm sorry for that. All right, so I want to stand in the way of that. Oh, but I mean, I guess most of you were there at Corey's talk. I'm telling you, we didn't align I've never met Corey. We didn't align our ideas in any way, and yet, this is a symbol of the project, an elephant, and my elephant, which is also the cover of my book. So, elephants are important to the project, to the presentation, and you'll hear more about why. So it is about the elephant in the room, but it's more. Okay. So, just a little bit of what we're going to do today. Share personal and professional interest in commemorating by way of tattoos, a little history about tattooing. I'll describe how tattoos talk about love, loss, and grief. And by grief, Corey's talk was more about grief after loss by death. That said, one of the gentlemen in the audience noted that there are all kinds of loss of limb, loss of jobs, loss of life as we knew it, for those, for example, who have survived accidents, which are also, as we know, not always really accidents. I'm going to talk about tattoos and trauma, and Amber is going to talk about this project, why, how, and what we know so far, with further invitation for participation. We'll have a Q&A, and then members will share their stories, I hope. So why tattoos? Well, I have personal experience with grief through two perinatal losses. So in the 1970s, two of my babies at different times, they were twins, died shortly after birth. Now, Corey talked about both disenfranchised and suffocated grief. I experienced both of those because at the time we were told, go home and forget about it, have another one. You were really not to grieve. And in fact, protocols in hospitals at the time followed the same suits. I was not allowed to see my babies, let alone hold them, touch them. So I went home and I realized that's not the way it works. So I became interested later, years later, in why it was that about 15 years after my losses, 10 to 15 years after my losses, things started to change in hospitals. As a result, I did this group facilitation for bereaved families of Ontario, both Toronto and Peel. And so I've worked with bereaved families of Ontario as a facilitator, as a consultant on their board of directors, and more recently with Matthews House Hospice in Alliston. So my research interests include loss, grief, bereavement, and when I was at Bereaved Families of Ontario, which was in about 2009, I met a woman who was older than me and who I noticed had a tattoo on her leg, and it was a skate, and it was a before a birth and a death date. And I bought into, the stigma about tattoos at the time. I have to tell you, I did. And I wondered why this woman, who I thought wouldn't be likely to have tattoos, had a tattoo. So I discussed it with her. We've become close friends. We've written together. And then I also noticed at bereaved families that a lot of other people that I didn't think would have tattoos had tattoos in memory of their loved ones. My thinking began to shift. I got my first two tattoos were butterflies, many years after my babies died, acknowledging their existence, honoring them, and not only for me to remember, but helping others remember that those babies existed. So and then following that, I was going to England for a conference, and I needed to take a project. And I said, I'm just going to take a one-off project. I'm going to look at why people get memorial tattoos. So memorial tattoos are specifically those in honor and memory of persons who were deceased. Could be animals too, but I was looking specifically at people who were deceased. So I interviewed 35 people who experienced loss by various relationships and who had tattoos. And I got such I presented it visually because, of course, it is a very visual way to represent loss, to represent information. And I got such great feedback for that. I won Best Poster Prize and so forth. So I decided it wasn't going to be a one-off project. So I kept interviewing people with memorial tattoos, and then I got funding to interview people in focus groups. So maybe, for example, death by suicide, which is still stigmatized. Why we don't say committed suicide because it's not a crime, and it further stigmatizes it. We say died by suicide. Grandparent loss, child loss, parent loss, and one that is really disenfranchised and people don't really recognize the importance of it is a sibling loss. So we've still got a lot of work to do with recognizing sibling loss. So I brought some siblings together, and they were so excited. They had never met other people who experienced sibling loss, and were able to talk about it. So from there, my interest grew then from not only tattoos having to do, memorial tattoos having to do with people who have died, but commemorative tattoos, which is a broader category. And I'll explain that in a minute. So I began the Tatoo Project as a way to explore various aspects of commemorative tattoos. And the book you see there is my book on the subject, and that tattoo of the elephant on that lovely young woman's back is also the tattoo on my arm, and we'll figure out why elephants in the slide, I believe. So why an elephant? Lots of talk already today about elephants, the elephant in the room. But I'm taking this farther. Elephants form communities with rich social bonds that provide a major component of their survival. Rich social bonds important to survival, not only elephants. Elephants demonstrate emotional contagion, which which means that if an elephant is distressed, the others try to soothe and protect them. We who have experienced loss of all types, wouldn't we like others to soothe and protect us rather than to say the things that Corey talked about? Yeah, but it's as if, it's not as if you got to know them. They were old anyway. That's not the kinds of things that are supportive. And that's not the kind of thing that elephants do, even though they can't talk anyway. So, for example, emotional contagion. So they have been known to exhibit grief at the loss of a family member. Members of their communities provide social support, which is my key focus on elephants, and what we need from others is social support to the member who is grieving the most. Rather than rushing the elephant through the grief, they keep to her pace. So I came across a story written by a game warden, and there are several examples of this. This is just one instance of a herd of elephants moving along to their next, wherever they were going, and there was a mother elephant who had just recently, her baby had died, her calf had died, and she would carry that calf in her trunk as they moved along. And she would move slowly. When they stopped to drink water, she would put the calf down and proceed. The elephants, rather than rushing that mother elephant along so they could get done faster, they kept to her pace. And that is the kind of social support we need from humans. We need them to be more like elephants. We need them to keep to our pace, not to try to rush us through our grief. Unlike the elephant in the room of humans who avoid others' grief, elephants respond to others' grief in helpful ways. Social support, that's what we want human beings to do. And elephants remember, which is why humans get memorial and commemorative tattoos. A little bit about the prevalence and acceptance of tattoos. Earliest archaeological evidence goes back to over 5,000 years. Artifacts, though, that have been used in tattooing to create the tattoo go back between 10,000 and 50,000 years. So it is an age-old production. By 1000 BC, tattooing was found on virtually every continent but Antarctica. Tattoo, from the Tahitian word tatatu, and its variant, tattoo, means an act done by the hand several times over with color. Here's past meets present. Meet Dave Mazursky. His tattoos were found on the frozen Scythian, a 2,500-year-old mummy from the Bronze Age and the Scythian tribe. Now Dave, these are commemorative and memorial tattoos for Dave. Dave, who wrote a chapter in my book, is a medical illustrator at University of Toronto, and it was his mentor, another medical illustrator and tattoo artist, who took Dave to Russia to see the mummy, and then his mentor soon died, but in between that time, he tattooed he created these tattoos on Dave's body. And so Dave recognizes these tattoos not only as commemorating his experience with his mentor and of this Scythian tribe, but also as memorials to his mentor, who then was deceased. So, surprisingly or not, the New York Times in 1876 reported that women and aristocrats were getting tattooed. So it was not just, ideas started changing about it, it's not just for sailors and prisoners. In 1908, they reported reported tattooing is on the increase. It's a habit not confined to semen only. 300 preserved tattoos are stored in the Science Museum in London. These skins were purchased in 1920 from a Parisian doctor. Now, you may think, oh, preserving tattoos from human skin after someone is deceased. We've seen this in the news again, not that long ago, where some people are having very expensive artwork on them, and then they leave that artwork after they die to someone they want to inherit it, so they can be, they are still being preserved. What I like to say about tattoos in every presentation I make, probably say it more than once, tattoos have never been confined or limited to their relationship to deviance, which was, of course, the way I was, oh, here comes a tattoo fella. The way I originally thought of, when I saw Helena's tattoo, I wondered why she had it. Now I watch my own. So more than 25% of people in North America have at least one, and this number, that is a bit old, is probably even more than that. And we know, those of us who have tattoos, know that tattoos are like potato chips. You can't just get one potato chip, you can't just have one tattoo.
Just like Lay's, can't have one.
No, you can't have one. About 33% of Gen Xers, those born between 1960 and 1980s, have at least one. About 38% of Gen Yers between 1980 and 2000 have at least one. Many of these tattoos are commemorative tattoos. Those that in whatever way remember, honor, acknowledge. My research shows that between 50 and 80% of tattoos are for commemoration of some sort. And it's age dependent because generally people in the older age categories are, especially getting their first tattoo, are more likely to have thought about not getting a tattoo, and then something happens in their life, a significant event that makes them want to mark it on their bodies. Although, when I was getting my first tattoo, I was in the tattoo shop and a 16-year-old, have to be 18 or so to get a tattoo, 16-year-old, came in with his mom, and of course I'm chit-chatting with him, and I asked him about his tattoo, and he said, it's for my grandmother, she passed away, and that, of course, was the only reason his mother let him have a tattoo, was because it was meaningful for his grandma. I've heard that story several times from other people as well. So, tattoos as body modification. Tattooing is one of the most persistent and universal forms of body modification. Here I go again. While tattoos have been most recognized as marks of deviance, they have also been used for spiritual and decorative purposes, as sacred art, secular art, as part of sacred ceremonies, marking social position, power, and strength of characters. Now we know that some gangs have tattoos, so that would be social position in that gang, strength of character if you meet the demands of that gang. But I've also met particularly young men who have been gang members and then tattoo themselves as a reminder that they never wanted to sort of go back there, to return to that lifestyle. We understand our bodies to be modified and to be with. Tattoos are with. They share, they remember, and honor our experiences. Inevitably, persons who have memorial tattoos will often touch their memorial tattoo and say, so-and-so is with me. They are embodied on them. They will be with them until the day they die, and if that tattoo is preserved even longer. Tattoos are visually interesting modes of communication. I mean, how many here have tattoos? And people ask pointing out that elephant in the room. They are a way to honor, and they are a form of public storytelling. Next, I'm going to talk about tattoos and trauma. I'm sure that all of you here are here for a reason with Mad Canada. You have all experienced trauma. The word trauma is used to describe experiences or situations that are emotionally painful and distressing, and that overwhelm people's ability to cope, leaving them feeling powerless, like the loss of life or limb, for example, from impaired driving. Tattoos allow people to talk, tell stories, speak what might be a difficult dialogue, what is silenced or traumatic. We've heard this message earlier from Corey about, people wanting to silence you, to silence your experience, to silence your grief. Every day, on average, up to 4 Canadians are killed. Many more are injured in alcohol and or drug-related motor vehicle crashes on public roads. And I learned from Steve, one of the first times I was here presenting, that it is now the use of drugs as substances that impair driving has overtaken the use of alcohol. I think that people in my generation, for example, we drove when we had a few drinks, maybe a few too many. I think more and more people have come to learn that. But now, especially since certain drugs are legal, we still have a ways to go to learn that. So, what do tattoos do? Often trauma leads to post-traumatic stress disorder. Trauma affects the brain, like physiologically affects the brain. It changes the brain. So, we've been in a traumatic event, we've had a traumatic experience, and we feel out of control. We have no control over, or very little control over. What do tattoos do? They help us gain control when control was taken from us. They help us tell our stories and honor our loved ones. Tattoos can help others remember. Now, Helena, the woman I talked to that I met at bereaved families in Ontario, every chance she gets, she tells, Donna, her daughter, had bipolar disorder and Crohn's disease. And when she was treated for one, she wasn't treated for not the other. So, failure in the medical system for sure. So Donna died by suicide, and Helena and her other family members have a tattoo of an ice skate on their leg or other parts of their body, depending on the family members, because Donna was also a professional figure skater, in which she was in a great deal of pain, especially from the Crohn's. She had said, I just gotta skate. So she would go and find ice time and skate. And in terms of honoring, commemorating, memorializing, for 10 years, Helena held silent auctions and public skating events that were called Just Gotta Skate, and she raised over $100,000 for the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. So that is another way that we commemorate. And Helena would always say, in terms of remembering, it's not that we will forget our loved ones, it's that others will. Now, you know about that. So through her tattoo, Helena introduced me and many other people to Donna. And now I'm introducing you to Donna. This is part of the living legacy of Donna. A traumatic event somehow made a little less traumatic as time went on through her tattoo. Now, commemorative. celebrate what is important and meaningful to people. They're about places, life events, challenges. Hello, come on in. Challenges and victories. And Corey also mentioned about this dual thing going on at the same time. Laughter and joy and pain residing in the same place. I don't like having my photograph taken at all. One of the pictures I like of myself best is with a big genuine smile when my husband and I went on a walk to remember babies that died around the time of birth in Halifax. And that is also a picture of grief, because these things reside in us simultaneously. Grief. Grief does not have to be polite. Anger is part of grief. Grieving is often an act of rage. Grief does not have to be quiet. Even grief has been colonized. We are told to contain it, to express it in a certain way. And yet, grief is protest. Grief is a normal response to loss, to many types of losses. This is very resonant, and so certainly supportive of what we heard from Corey, but I told you, I've never met her, we've never aligned our presentations. Those we love don't go away. They walk beside us every day, unseen, unheard, but always near, still loved, still missed, and very dear. And as I mentioned at the beginning of this presentation, grief, we experience grief after loss. Loss of relationships, loss of limbs, loss of health, loss of jobs because of, perhaps impairments that we acquired through impaired driving. And it says here, grief is the last act of love we can do. And it's only because someone was loved or something was important to us that we experience grief. Why? Why do you think it's important for your stories to be told? Anybody care to share? Why are your stories important?
How-
Yes, hi.
For me, the more I share stories about people that I've lost, the more I'm able to remember them and honor them or pay tribute.
Absolutely. The more you talk about people you've loved and lost, the more you honor them, pay tribute to them. Do you have any tattoos?
I do.
Okay. And do you ever find that your tattoos help open dialogue?
Always when someone notices it, yeah.
Absolutely. Are you part of our project yet?
I'm not part of your project.
Okay, well,
but
we'll tell you about that. We'll
Future
just
ones,
put them
exactly.
in here. Anybody else? Hi.
Is help prevention. Like, you tell your story, so maybe you stop someone else from doing what that other person did.
Absolutely, yes. And in the case of impaired driving, you can talk about what your losses, your experiences have been because of impaired driving. Now, I also met people here the last time that were a cause of an accident. And they grieve too, because they think back on their behavior and recognize that they've caused others loss, and they may themselves also have experienced impairment in that accident. Anybody else? Why do you want to talk about these things?
I think it's important to share out your stories, and I look at it as a subtle way that, for me, my tattoos are personal to me. They tell stories, and they're about my trauma, past life to new life after trauma, and as well as commemorative to those that are near and dear to my heart. But I think it's important too that if people do ask, it's important for me to share.
Yeah, excellent. And because you're sharing. I think this can go back to Corey's A and ancestry. So presumably your offspring, your family will come to a new way of talking about death and loss and grief. So those of us who do that, we're opening the door for others, generationally and intergenerationally. Yes, hi.
Keeps the memory alive.
To keep the memory alive, that's right, absolutely. And I think I said before you came in that people that I've interviewed with memorial tattoos, those after people have died, will say, so-and-so is always with me. They're embodied through this tattoo. They're with me all the time. Absolutely, thank you. Hi.
I think sometimes too, if you share your story, it'll surprise you how many others have a similar story. So it opens up that dialogue and then you feel that they get it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for example, when I experienced perinatal loss, it was silenced. I mean, it was silenced in medicine, it was silenced in social situations. When I started talking to people about my losses, I hate to say it, but that babies came out of the woodwork. Like, people then started talking about their experiences, and I can tell you, from what I've read, from what I experienced, from people I've talked to, you can be 95 years old on your deathbed and you will not forget those babies. And we don't want others to forget them either. Okay, so commemorative tattoos. As you were saying, remember and honor through visual and verbal stories. Tattoos tell stories that are continued and shared as a tangible part of living flesh. Tattoos serve as a translator of an experience into a language more readable by others. A language comforting to the tattoo bearer and less disturbing to others, as I think Steve brought that out. So to say, okay, let's sit down and talk about, death or loss of limb. Well, that's, so sharing your tattoo story, showing your tattoos is a gentle way to open up that dialogue. Commemorative tattoos represents change. My guess is that anyone who's experienced anything for reasons they're here today probably notes that experience as a time marker, before and after. And so participants in my research have noted that their experiences have changed them in profound ways. Their tattoos are visual, and they are visual representation of that change. In a sense, tattoos become a visual symbol marking not only a particular moment of a tragic change, but an identity, person before and person after. Also representing the ongoing process of enduring and integrating the experience into one's life and identity in meaningful ways. I never say, as Corey never says, you get over it. You don't get over, but the best you can hope to do is to integrate that experience into your life and your identity in meaningful ways, ways that commemorate. That bench in the cemetery, the pillow that you make for your grandchild out of the grandfather's shirt, small ways and big ways. Just got escaped like Helena did for Donna. Here's a story of change. Eva's son died by suicide. I was surviving and looking like I was doing okay from the outside, and perhaps it was just my perception that people were forgetting what I had gone through and how my life had changed forever. And maybe they didn't even realize that I had changed forever. That even though my outside looked the same, my inside had been scrambled and reassembled in a very different way. And so I felt that I had wanted an external reminder. I wanted them to remember. my last slide, and then we come to Amber's part of our presentation. It's clear to me from my research, from the stories that people tell, that commemorative tattoos are restorative. They render visible both pain and pleasure. The elephant in the room that is grief becomes visible, and rather than dreaded, she assures and assuages. She walks with us in our grief. Tattoos challenge and disrupt. They demonstrate social relations, strength over suffering and adversity, and reveal memory as what we are. Now for my colleague Amber.
So I'm basically going to be talking about the project that Deborah has agreed to be a part of today.
Stand.
She's like, sure. So Deborah invited me to be a part of this project in April. We've been collecting the data since around June, July. And we're aiming to learn about the various shared meanings that people have with commemorative tattoos. What does location mean for people? Is it something that they want colorful? Do they want it to be big or small? So we want to explore those meanings. So we've been collecting data through a qualitative questionnaire. This allows people to answer the questions in as much depth or brevity as they feel comfortable. And they allow us to learn about participants' tattoos, not just as a piece of art on their body, but also to learn if their motivations to get tattoos, the profound and complex meanings that they assign to these tattoos, and how it transforms how they understand certain events to certain people. And this relates to Deborah's earlier point where she highlights that, yeah, tattoos are not just art, they're modes of communication that provoke discussion, empathy, and other emotions. They allow us to honor relationships and experiences, and allow us to tell stories for what is difficult, what is silenced, and allows them to be understood and acknowledged. In sum, a tattoo can be understood as a manifestation of meanings, experiences, emotions, intentions, and memories. And some people here, their tattoo is on this board right now, so it's for those people.
Yeah.
So, our question
Is that Tina's?
Yes.
We wanted to learn how people came to envision the piece that they had tattooed, and what elements of their life, relationship, and personal character shaped the images that came to be forever placed with them. With the completed questionnaires, we also asked participants to submit photos. Thanks again to them, and to Stephen. And we're going to talk about some of the themes that we've discovered today. And to get to the technical part of it, the how, we're doing a thematic analysis of the questionnaires. This allows us to identify, analyze, and report patterns. And then beyond noticing patterns, we start to, through this form of analysis, we're able to interpret the data more meaningfully beyond patterns alone. So for instance, across the responses we've received so far, some participants have mentioned that their tattoos are located on the wrist or inner arm. And while this was first acknowledged as a common pattern in terms of location, our analysis prompted us to notice and interpret the significance of this placement. So we want to talk about two main themes today. And the first is that participants, the intimate visibility of the participant's tattoos serves as a personal reminder of the person they have lost. And as a symbol that allows the participant to, in a way, keep that person, their connection, love, and memories close with them. Similar to what Deborah was saying, this person is with me through this tattoo. So this theme was shared across 3 participants. And I believe, yes, Maury is the Celtic symbol that you can see over here, which represents mother and son. And she wrote, I always see it. It feels like a connection to my son. I often put my hand on it. And Mark's tattoos are right here, which are 2 different commemorative tattoos. This bottom part, you can see here, tattoo is on my right wrist. I wanted it in a place where I could see it daily. I got this tattoo as it felt like a way to have her with me. I look at it, see her signatures, and usually there's a memory that I think of. The second key thing we've identified is that tattoos are not only for the self, but for others as well. So this theme speaks to the cathartic experience of sharing your story with a curious and caring other, where tattoos are elaborately designed in a place where other people will later see and seek to learn about the tattoo as well. So Dorothy, which is this piece right here, is speaking about the image of her tattoo and its placement on her left of her calf states, I wanted it to be able to be seen by others. I wanted something unique so it would be something that would attract people and encourage them to ask questions. I've been stopped many times in many countries and in various places, such as malls and airports, and I've been asked about it. The most common question I get asked is that it's very unique, and obviously they want to know the story behind it. I've been given many opportunities this way to talk about not drinking and driving to about brain injuries. So here we can see how Dorothy's, the visibility of her tattoo allows her to create a learning opportunity of this storytelling as well. And Stephen shares a similar role in his tattoos. Not only are his colorful and detailed tattoos used to honor his hobbies and family, but also to share his story about being a blind-impaired driver and the way in which this experience shifted his philosophy of life. He writes, these tattoos on my right arm and chest are my life before and after my injuries and my life now. There are cracks in the wall, and these represent that there will be cracks in life, and they do not mean that life is over. They represent that life is not perfect, and that I will continue to thrive. From these cracks come life, the lilies. The clock on my right chest has the hand of the clock stopped at the hour that was hit the night in 2012. It reminds me of the time my life changed for the activities I would do with my family. I love my tattoos, and I will talk about them with anyone who is interested. They tell my story, and my story is not done. I have more available space to continue the art of my life. And you can see Stephen here, as well as right here. That's it for my slide. We are still collecting data for this project, so we are actively inviting people who have commemorative tattoos related to their participation in that to speak to us right now or afterwards.
Thank you. You know, so, oh, yeah, so it's clear that, so it's not only what our tattoos say to others, but from the detail we saw in just a couple of these answers, we know that they help their bearers think through, their experiences, particularly resonant, with what you said, Steve, and what Stevens,
Either one.
and what you noted about before and after and change, and, representing cracks and not being finished. So, persons with commemorative tattoos put a lot of thought into what they want on their bodies to represent their experience and where they want it on their bodies. The shoulder is often a key place because so-and-so had my back. So they consider color and they can often consider the tattooings, an ongoing process. So maybe, I'm gonna use you for an example, Steve, maybe in 5 years' time, Stephen will have more real estate there. Stephen will have another thought come to him, memory, something will be important to him from the accident that he will want to also place on his body. Now I think it's time to hear, first of all, how many of you have tattoos? Okay. And the rest of you, I would say just not yet. How many of you who don't have tattoos have at times now or before thought about getting a tattoo in memory of your experience? Aha. Have I talked to you in an earlier presentation?
I was here last December.
So the tree, it was the tree, was yours the tree image for your son?
No,
Somebody
not
else.
me.
Okay, what are you thinking about, Paul? What kind of image and why?
I've always been not very happy about tattoos, only because it reminds me of time I was in a childhood. I ended up in the hospital with a lot of puncture wounds from needles,
Oh.
IVs and so on. So I've always been wary of needles. Tattooing falls in that category. However, you're asking about what I consider a tattoo, and never until last December when I saw your talk first time, it put it in a new light. And the idea I had was I'd like to get myself a small little outline of an anvil, like a worker's
And
anvil,
you're going here again.
something like that. An anvil being very strong, very hard, very rigid, and that sort of would remind me of how to process and how to handle this business of living with being a victim. As you go through the whole process of life being a victim, you're subjected to all sorts of social interactions that aren't always positive. You know, people are not very sympathetic, or they're too sympathetic. You get into that sort of mindset. So I thought, well, an anvil, well, that's a good analogy to have.
So you just.
Yeah, sort of like that. Not too big, but just there, you know, like a little reminder.
You're gonna wanna go big. Trust me, once it's done, you'll wish you lived there. Just saying, Paul,
Just
just saying.
Just saying, yes.
How long ago was your experience, Paul?
That would happen for me in 1974. So yes, it is a long time ago, and I probably might be the oldest person here with an injury to live with it, but I can say with empathy and certainty that you don't forget. It's with you for the rest of your life. So that's why I was thinking a tattoo, permanent with you the rest of the life, as a reminder, in a good way.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Emla cream and other topical
Lidocaine.
agents.
Lidocaine, takes the sting out of it.
Ah, okay, yeah.
You can buy it online, just saying.
What did you say?
I said lidocaine, you can get it online from Amazon.
Yeah,
Takes
yeah.
the sting out.
Absolutely, yeah. And it sounds like you're thinking of something that's not too big, so
Yeah.
maybe it will also help you overcome your fear and that painful childhood memory of doing something positive with needles this time.
You, of course, are missing a wonderful opportunity in marketing here. You could have a tattoo studio set up here.
Yeah.
For those impulsive people.
You know what, we go on a lot of cruises, and I suggested, the last cruise we were on, I could do a presentation, get a free cruise out of it, of course. I could do a presentation on tattoos, blah, 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 and they said, oh, you gotta go to Virgin Cruises, because they actually have tattooists on the ship.
Really?
Apparently, yeah.
Okay.
I know where you're going with Mark.
Well, thank you for sharing that, Paul, and email me, Duffy@yorkview.ca if you get that tattoo.
Cross over to the dark side.
The dark side.
It's not so dark.
So my husband is back there, and he used to be afraid of needles, like, you know how men sometimes can be. Now he's got like 3 big tattoos on him, all with meaning, so if he can do it, you can do it.
Trying to convince my mom.
You're trying to convince, so you have a tattoo?
Yeah.
Can you, do you feel like letting some, this is being live streamed. Would you like to show it on camera up here or on Facebook? What's your name? Danielle. If you feel comfortable.
It's in the memory of my brother.
Sibling grief.
Yeah.
And is there a lot of talk about sibling grief?
Not really.
Not really, yeah. You-
17 months ago.
3 months ago.
17.
I'm sorry?
17 months ago on his birthday.
Oh my.
Yeah. Just left my house and 37 minutes later, it's gone.
Oh, very sorry to hear that.
But we got to blow out a birthday cake together. His last birthday cake.
Do you wish to talk about it?
It's gonna bring me to tears.
And you're trying to convince your mom to get a, oh, I'm sorry. Corey thinks about grief like a roller coaster. I think of it as like waves and tides and sometimes tsunamis. And it can, that tsunami can be recent, that tsunami can come years later.
Yeah.
So, everybody in this room, I'm sure to say, is sorry for your loss.
Yeah, she has 2 children. It was just me and my brother. So
2 children?
just me and my brother, my little brother. Yeah. Thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing it, Danielle.
Thank you.
So, you don't have a tattoo yet, is that right?
No.
Yeah, so what's your name?
Yeah.
Leanne. Were you thinking of it ever?
Not until today.
Not until today. Okay, what made you think about it today? Like, what, did anything specifically resonate with you?
The stigma.
Uh-huh.
So just you know, the idea of commemorating.
I am 70 years old. I've got them all over. And I was about 50 something when I got my first one, so you're way younger than that. What do you think you might get as a tattoo?
I don't even know.
You don't even know. Yeah, it's a big decision. And you are Adele, and you have a tattoo?
I do.
Oh, do you want to tell us about it? Hands and a heart?
Yeah, with my husband's fingerprint in it. It's not a good fingerprint, but it's a fingerprint.
Fingerprint on your heart. How long ago was your loss?
7 years on the 2nd of October.
It's coming up. Do you have anniversary anxiety? Anniversary?
We, as our family, our children, we kind of, the day of his crash is the day that changed our lives.
Right.
So that's the one that hurts the most. The actual day of his death was just the end of his pain. And the beginning of life.
Do people ask you about that? Like when you have, like when shows, swimsuit, summer wear?
I haven't actually had anybody ask. They asked more about the ones on my wrist.
Oh, okay.
So that one says hold my heart. That one says until we meet.
Again, on the wrist. The wrist, you know, often the left wrist goes to your heart and, you know, the blood flowing through. Who else doesn't have a tattoo yet? Oh, hi. How are you? What's your name?
Leslie?
Leslie. Are you thinking about it?
Yeah, I've been thinking about it for years. I'm just pretty.
And do you have any idea what you get or what it would represent to you?
Oh, my phone is full of ideas, but I haven't actually settled on anything yet.
Yeah.
Something with the heart, an infinity, something in memory of my son.
How old was your son, Leslie?
He was 20.
I'm so sorry. Those of you who have tattoos, how did you come to decide? How did you come to decide what you wanted? Like it's a huge decision. Did you go through books? Did you think about your particular experience, what you like? How did you come to that decision? Because it is a big decision.
It's a long thought process. When I got my first tattoo, it was of a Celtic love knot, and I wanted to commemorate my love for my wife, Stephanie. I then had her name, my name, tattooed in Cantonese, so that I knew what it meant, but because I've seen a lot of people get the name of a loved one or a spouse on their arm. If they divorce or separate, that's permanently there. So, you know, and I'm not saying I was gonna, like, you're thinking of leaving my wife, but I just wanted it for myself. I knew what it meant, right? And my wife and I, we've joked about that over the years. But when I was injured, I really wanted to think about how do I remember what happened before, my life before, and then after, okay? That's one theme I want. But now then when I look at it, how do I want it to be represented? What is the best way? And what pieces do I want to really call out that means so much to me? And once I did that, that's when I went to the artist and explained what I was looking for. And I have to tell you, completely blown away by the work that she did.
Yeah, that's an excellent answer, and I would suggest that you can do it. You can start looking through the internet. Start maybe jotting down images that you might be interested in, but get your very own image. Work with your tattoo artist to get something that's not just from a book. I did that with my first 2 butterflies. I just got something from a book, but I know a heck of a lot more about what I'm doing now. I'll tell you about my last tattoo. Now, Corey was talking about whatever helps you. This is in particular in the case of death. Whatever helps you is what's best for you. So there's a poem. Some of you have probably heard it. It's called "Do Not Stand at My Grave and Weep." Probably some of you have heard of it. Basically, because I am not there. I did not die. I do not sleep. And then it goes on to talk about all the parts of nature that I am now in after I have died. But my question is, maybe we really don't. So that is the image that I have most recently on my arm. Now, this comforts me in a kind of a spiritual but also scientific way. What are bodies? Bodies are composed of mass and energy. That's what we are. Laws of conservation of mass and energy say nothing is lost. Matter is never lost and energy is never lost. It's converted. So for me, it comforts me to think that the loved ones I have lost are still here in a different form. They're back into nature. And that's the way I like to think about it.
I have another tattoo here that I got. Oh. Wow.
Show and tell.
Gonna make me walk.
Sorry.
That's okay. So this one here, I got put on my arm. To me, it basically what it says is life is a runway. Your runway is only so long. Don't waste it. And I got that because I just moved from my previous job in BC to the one in Alberta, and it was a change. So life to me was a journey, and I don't want to waste the time I have. What was ironic about this tattoo, and it has so much more meaning to me, is I got this tattoo 2 weeks before I got injured. And it just reinforced in me that anything can happen at any time. So we should enjoy our lives and take in what we can. So, yeah, a different tone and take on the same tattoo.
Yeah, and
Just reinforce
this
it,
is
right?
also about change. We
Yeah.
change. Life is about change. Now I know that doesn't comfort everybody, and that's fine. As Corey said, it comforts me. What comforts you is what we're excited
I
about.
knew right away, as soon as my brother passed, I was getting a tattoo.
Had you had any tattoos before?
Yeah,
Oh,
my daughter too.
your daughters.
I have 5 children and I don't have one on me and they keep. And I know I need to get the rest of them on me. It's just time, I'll get it soon. But I just knew, as soon as my brother passed, that I needed something that I could visually see that. He reminds me every day for the rest of my life that he's with me.
And he's with you, see, I told you, he's with you. And, was it hard for you to decide what to put on? No, you knew that right away. Some people do know right away, others, it's a longer process.
Yeah, I knew right away because I was a little girl, but he's much bigger than me. Yeah,
What was little girl's name?
Whitney. Whitney?
Whitney. So now we all know Whitney,
Yeah.
as well as Danielle and Mom. Let me see, who else doesn't have a tattoo? I'm gonna pick on you. Hi.
Lee Ellen.
Lee Allen.
Yes.
So, what you doing here then, in a
Really
presentation
just
of
a
tattoos?
kind of research, just trying to understand the popularity, the rise in desire
Yeah,
for
and it
tattoos.
is. You know, with an increase in tattooing in general, and then after the death of Princess Diana, the both of them came together, and I mean, we see more roadside memorials,
Yeah.
memorials of every type, and people are actually talking about them, you know, which is a good thing. Do you think you might get a tattoo?
Probably not.
Okay.
But I've got 3 children, so my husband was killed about a decade ago, and my youngest had been asking for a tattoo for a while, and then I had no control once he turned 18. He went and got his father's signature on his arm, and he put it in a place where other people could see it. And he, out of the 3, he's the one that won't talk about it. But he says when people see it, they know.
So Mom couldn't be angry about that tattoo.
No, I'm not angry about any of their tattoos.
Yeah. So they're tattooed.
But they're decisions. But I thought it was just very simple because he asked me for this signature, proof of signature, and I found one.
Yeah, that is a common
Yeah.
tattoo, a
Yeah.
signature from a document
Yeah.
or a card or something.
She was okay with it this time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not my first one, but my one.
Anybody else before
I have tattoos, but I don't have any commemorative ones for my accent yet.
Okay.
But in Saskatchewan, I have to wait for to get out of the insurance process first before I can cover up my scars.
Right.
Go back, I'm not following.
His scars, he
I've-
covers them up.
I want to cover up my scars. I have one there, big ones on my
Okay,
leg.
and what about the insurance? I wasn't.
The Saskatchewan government insurance, they have to take photos and stuff of my scars to decide my payouts.
Okay,
So I
okay,
can't get them covered up as of yet,
right.
so I have to, but there's lots of ideas floating in there.
You have lots of ideas. Are they based on your accident or?
Some are, and some are based on the fact that I'm a chef, so.
Oh, that's.
The whisk.
The whisk, chefs.
I take
did a-
whisks.
I did a presentation.
I take whisks.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Often it's nice, you know, I did a presentation at the ROM, Royal Ontario Museum, when they had the big tattoo exhibit a few years ago, before COVID, 5 years ago. And I was on a panel about culinary tattoos, so, yeah.
No, I got this one on the back of my leg.
Huh. Oh, so, covering scars with tattoos is not uncommon, and, women who've had mastectomies due to breast cancer sometimes get beautiful breastplates instead of breasts. They have breastplates. So you can think about any other. Do you have any questions? Nobody's asked questions yet. I can get to questions.
For your project,
Yeah.
like I know it's just you're getting into you're doing the pre-project right now, gathering your data, your
Yeah.
information and that. When are you anticipating to start the project? And then, like, do you have a completion in mind?
Well, we started it already.
Yeah.
We're gonna extend the date, because I'm gonna hand these out to you. If you're interested. So, we're always optimistic when we give a date by which we get things back, but we don't generally. And we don't wanna turn people off, because of that. So, we've started the project. We're gonna continue handing out more information today. Hopefully we get responses back. I think we'll get some. And we are already, as we get, as Amber mentioned, as we get the questionnaires in, we're thematicizing them. Amber's working really hard on that. And then, what I think we'd like to do, if it's okay with Mad Canada, you know the big posters?
Yes.
We'd like to put some images and little stories on there, plus a research report, a little plain language research report that can be, shared, on paper or electronically or whatever, and then a more scholarly kind of article from that. That's why. So informed consent, as Tim will know, if his wife's in academia, right? I mean, don't use a toaster in the oven. You know what I mean? It asks for all kinds of stuff. So when I pass these out, when you have a chance, please read them carefully, and you will note that you will be asked to consider signing your agreement to participate, use of photos. You don't want to use photos, just cross that out. Waiver of anonymity. So I have found that almost 100% of the people I've ever interviewed and research project with don't want pseudonyms to be used for them when we're describing our research. But if you do, that's fine. And we want you to decide on your own pseudonym. Mostly people want to say, yes, I want the world to know. But what I do is I will only use your first name in the reports, or this just makes me more comfortable. And then there's also, if you are, if your tattoo is about someone who is deceased, do you want to use their real name, or do you want to use an anonymous pseudonym that you make up? You may want to use your real name, but you may want to use a pseudonym for it. And recognizing also, it says here somewhere, I think, that tattoos are often very distinct. And someone reading this research, seeing a poster or whatever, may recognize that. Do you have any tattoos? May recognize your tattoo. Hi, I'm Deborah.
Victoria.
Do you care to?
Yeah, so my family was kind of blessed. 2 months before my sister passed, she had booked a tattoo appointment. It was scheduled for January, and she passed in October. And she was gonna get 5 tattoos. So looking through her calendar of what she had planned after she passed, my mom decided that she didn't want to cancel the appointment. And so the 3 of us went and got tattoos that she was gonna get.
The 5? You got
Me and my, no, not all 5, no. Just the ones that resonated with us. So I got,
you each have a different one?
yeah, or 1 or 2 of them. So I got 2 done that she was gonna get in different spots. And then she wrote me a letter. So I'm a recovering alcoholic, and so in my first year of sobriety, on my 1-year anniversary, she wrote me a letter, and so I got a section of that letter tattooed on me. So she said nice things in the letter. She never said the first sentence. So. And then I have a memorial sleeve, is what I call it. So like my grandfather passed, or I have family members that I don't want to ever forget. So I have 1 symbol for almost each of them on my entire arm. So
Yeah, I can't see it. Oh,
and I got my back and stuff done as well.
so you had the sleeve done in pieces?
Yeah, COVID helped me out financially that way too, so smaller chunks. But yeah, so after a while, like, you get a piece done, and then there's a bald spot, so it's like Tetris. You start adding little things in between too.
Do you mind if I put it on camera?
Yeah, I don't mind at all. Yeah, I'm a very spontaneous person, so I would just add little things that reminded me of somebody or of my sister and stuff like that. So.
Beautiful.
So sibling tattoo, I was mentioning, is often disenfranchised and forgotten about. How do you feel about how people, or do you know other people who've had sibling loss?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
Other than like coming to this event, I haven't met anyone else with sibling loss.
If you want to, I'll give you one of these, I hope you'll participate. And my email's on there, if you wanna shoot me an email also, I can send you a little article I did on sibling loss that might be helpful to you too, Danielle. So, yes, this is very detailed, asks you for a lot of information, and it has
Really
all
beautiful.
been
Thank you.
vetted by the ethics department at York University. Here, and attached to that is the questionnaire that we are asking. So you don't have to fill in all the answers, you can fill in as many answers as you want. They will very much help us proceed with our research. And then of course, those people who do participate, we will keep you on our list and we will always send you, when we're finished with the research, we will keep you updated as to where you can find it, what's happening, any articles. And this of course is just a little introduction about the project. This was all agreed to by Band Canada and so forth. And so you still have time here. We'll be here through lunch. I'll pass these out and leave some out on the front desk. If you happen to fill it out before we leave, that's great. You can leave them back on that table and I'll pick them up. We'll pick them up. But if you don't, if you just want to take it home and think about whether you want to do it or not, or have more time to respond, email me and I will tell you where you can mail it. Mail your responses back.
Or just take a picture.
Yeah.
Or just take a picture of the response.
Oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. It's the young ones who know this, this technology stuff. Thank you, Amber. So, we have, 15 minutes, or you can take a little break, but, oh no, do we have to 12:30? No.
12.
10 to 12. 10:30 to 12. First, before the second. You should go that way. Any questions or comments before we finish?
One thing I will say is, last time when you presented in December, and what I found really interesting was the history and how far back it goes, right? It's amazing, and it just shows you that it's been around for a long time.
Also helps destigmatize it when you find out it's used in sacred ceremonies and so forth. Any other questions, comments, concerns? Well, then on behalf of myself and my researcher here, we thank you all for your interest in this topic and for sharing your stories, and you've all experienced loss of some sort. Let us be your elephants.
Mm-hmm.
We're here to be your elephants. So, thank you.
Thank you.
So on behalf of Mad Canada, thank you both for coming. Thanks for coming back to see us.
Thank you. Anytime.
Thank you so much. Small token, really appreciate it, and I'm looking forward to seeing the results.
So you think it's okay if we send you images for
Yeah,
one of those
we can
posters?
work on that, yeah.
Good, okay, thank you, Steve. So, let me see.